Sup people, today we're going to be batch painting 10 Necron Warriors with Gauss Reapers. I'm going to be showing you the painting scheme I use that is simple but really effective. And of course it all starts with the Rune Lord Brass. We'll be applying this over the whole model apart from the main body of the Gauss Reaper. As I mentioned, this is a batch paint, so I'm going to be doing 10 of them at once and just showing you how this can be done really quickly and effectively, all in one go. Just bang out a whole squad in one go. It's easy. Okay, once they're all brassed up, we're going to be giving them all a dry brush of Canoptic Alloy. And that's how all your Necro boys should be looking after these first couple of stages. Next up, we're applying some Cryptic Armor Shade over most of the brass parts of the model, only avoiding the shoulder pads, the head, and the joins. To improve the coverage of the shade, it's a good idea to thin it down with some Lamium Medium and apply 2 thin coats rather than just one. And I'm getting all the boys washed up here. For 2 coats, it took me about an hour. Pretty decent. Next up, we're going to be tackling the carapace and the joins. We're talking about the parts between the brass areas. As you can see, I'm painting them here. We're talking about the hip, and we're talking about cleaning up that silver spray you can see there on the Gauss Reaper. Use your black contrast paint and just clean up and darken all these areas. Don't forget the robo toes. And there's all the boys with our black Templar applied. Right, we're going to be applying some Basilicanum Grey now, thinned down with some contrast medium to the leftover metallic parts of the model. We've got the shoulder pads, the head, and the bayonet-y bit at the end of the Gauss Reaper. With all our washes applied, we're going to go back to the airbrush and apply some white to the Gauss Reaper. This is going to apply the basis for our glowing effect. If you don't have an airbrush, you could try to get the same effect with some thinned down white paint, or maybe try dry brushing. There's all the boys, all glowing. Now the fun part begins. We're going to apply this new technical paint, Tesseract Glow, over the white foundation we've laid down. Can be a good idea to thin this down with some contrast medium, just so you get the handle on it a bit better. While I bash the rest of the boys out, here's a top tip. When you're applying the Tesseract Glow, pull the paint towards the area that you want to be glowing brightest. While the Tesseract glow's drying, I thought let's put down some texture paint. This is my homemade stuff, and I'm going to be smacking that down and letting that dry overnight. That was a decent evening's work done, and it didn't take too long at all. Right, it's the next morning and the Caliban Green is coming out. We're going to be tackling about half of the wires that are coming out of the Necron Warrior, focusing on the smooth wires and leaving the riveted ones for later. On those wires we've applied the Caliban Green to, we're going to be applying some thin down warpstone glow, focusing on the centers of the wires and the ends of them, giving a neat highlighting effect. As usual, it's best to use 2 thin coats of these layer paints and slowly build up to the desired color. Right, with our relic of a paint, bolt gun metal, we're going to be tackling the details on the Gauss Reaper, as well as the tubes that we had left, such as these on his body and some highlights on his head.
Why does it seem so
Furthermore to these areas, we're going to be applying some thin down Nuln oil to give them some depth and shading. To give our Gauss Reaper the same feeling of depth, we're going to be applying some Biel-Tan green to the crevices in the gun, like you can see here.
that brings the promise of
Okay, now our Necro boys are popping, but to make that glow pop even more, we're going to be whipping out our Black Templar contrast paint and cleaning up some of this glow and giving it just a little bit more shape. Top tip here is to pull the Black Templar paint away from the glow, darkening down the areas furthest away. Stormhost Silver next for some edge highlighting on our metallic areas. Personally, I think this step is pretty optional considering they are troop choices and you may have 40 upwards of them on the table. But it definitely does make them pop just that little bit more. Some selected areas of Stormhost Silver on the brass edges will also look nice on your Necron Warriors. Again, another optional part, but I think some Eshin Grey edge highlighting around the Gauss Reaper looks pretty decent too. Now back to our Gauss Reaper tubes. We're going to make them pop just a little bit more by pulling a white stripe through the front of it. And we're going to be going over this after with some Tesseract glow. As usual, to get a nice clean finish on that white, we're going to apply 2 thin coats. And while it's out, see if you can find and hit all those sneaky scarabs placed around the Necron Warriors. These are the 4 colors I use for the bases of my Necron army. I'm going to be hitting the larger stones with Celestia Grey, but apart from that, using the rest of the paints, just dry brushing from darkest up to lightest, and eventually hitting the rims with some black. And all there was left to do was to apply some of my favorite little dark moss tufts and hit those white stripes with Tesseract Glow. And with that, my 10 Gauss Reaper wielding Necron Warriors of the Zarakan dynasty are ready for the tabletop. Really hope you found this video useful, guys. Let me know if you did in the comments below. Subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next one. Laters!